guys, so today's video is a little bit different. I'm on the couch with my sister-in-law Gemma.
Hello.
She's the founder of Oscar's Wish Foundation. Do you want to briefly tell them about your charity?
Yeah. Oscar's Wish Foundation is a charity that supports parents who've been bereaved by the loss of a child before, during or shortly after birth.
And what is your personal experience for this?
I sadly lost my first child, Oscar, hence the name Oscar's Wish Foundation, when I was 6 months into my pregnancy.
From your personal experience, what would you say the first steps a parent should do upon learning about this devastating news?
I guess that question varies depending on the journey and the experience that the family are having. There will be questions, decisions, every emotion going through your body in the first minutes, hours, days, weeks, months. And the first and foremost step that I would say any family should consider is to protect themselves, because it's such a vulnerable time, and you from 1 minute to the next you don't know how you're going to be feeling. The other thing I would say to a family in this situation to take on board is, as much as there will be lots of decisions and questions to make, absorb it all and take the time you need to make the decision that's right, because often the decisions you make, although you can change them, they may be permanent. And there are many things I wish I'd done with Oscar that I didn't, because at the time I thought, oh, someone might look back on that in the future and think, why did she take photos of her baby? That's creepy, that's weird, that's odd. And actually those photos are my most cherished photos ever of anything. So do what you feel is right for you. Protect yourself, cocoon yourself, and take the time you need to process everything.
Following on from what you just said, are there any key questions that you'd ask the professionals?
Definitely, and I can see that now with hindsight. I, at the time, couldn't think of questions. The midwives did ask, are there any questions? Have you got... You're so baffled.
But how would you know what to ask? Like, it's the first time you've been thrown into that position.
Exactly. And it was my first pregnancy. To be asked, do you have any questions? At the time, the only question I had was, why has this happened to us?
Yeah.
Why my baby? Why me? Why in this situation? Yes, there are some really key questions, and they would be to, firstly, if you're asked something, for example, are you going to consider a post-mortem? At the time, I didn't have a clue what they were asking me. I would say the key questions would be to make sure you ask them if you're unsure of anything. Don't just agree to things because you think that's the right thing to do. I didn't feel I understood things as the process continued, but I guess we could create a list of questions that we could allow our viewers to see.
One of the key things for you is obviously to keep Oscar's legacy alive and people to remember Oscar.
Smiling when he said that.
I know, of course. But what could parents do to keep their baby's memory alive?
Do you know, that's a really good question, and if I've seen something that resonates with me, then I'll do it. So for example, in the first few months of being strong enough to go out and about, anything that had his name on it, I brought.
I do that as well. I see Oscar and I buy it
all the time, and it just made my heart smile that there was that recognition. It just felt that it was a way of keeping that memory alive, and that recognition. I did celebrate his first birthday. We did it completely with family, and the reason I chose to do that was because I have younger brothers and sisters who were very involved in my pregnancy, and it completely rocked their world when I had to explain that he'd passed away. So it was really important to have something something positive that followed on from his passing. I visit his grave, his forever bed, regularly, and I always make sure it's themed. So in the spring, it has lots of flowers and butterflies and bright, colourful items on it. In the winter, I always do a Christmas scene, because if my brothers and sisters and siblings and friends and their children visit, I don't want it to be seen as a sad place.
No, of course.
One of the other things I do regularly is, on a daily basis actually, I have a little space in the garden which has some pretty flowers and some little items that I brought in his memory, and I have a little lantern out there, so I light that every evening. And if it's too windy for that to be a light, then I have a candle lit indoors. Families often say that the flickering flame, the candlelight, is such a calming feeling, and just to watch the flame dance, even if it's in the corner of your eye or just to have it there, it does have such a calming effect, and lots of our families have said that's how they keep their baby's memory alive as well. We do, at every opportunity, in every conversation, I will always, if it's appropriate, bring up my experience, his name, my pregnancy. I would honour him at every opportunity.
But you also write letters to heaven, that helps you keep his memory alive.
I do. So I don't write them and post them anywhere. I write them mainly for my personal use, so a bit like keeping a diary.
Yeah.
But I also have a blog, so once a month I will publish on my blog, which is it's a private group, whereby I will talk about situations I've been in. So it could be that a comment someone made to me like, "Are you not over that yet?" That really, really resonated with me, that meant that I felt I needed to educate others as to how hurtful that comment was, even though that it wasn't meant like that. And I will use that as the theme or the feature for the blog, and then the rest of the letters I keep for my personal use.
Yeah.
Every day I'm getting stronger, every day I'm healing, and that's because people have allowed me to honour his name, honour his life through the charity, and I hope other families are able to do that as well, because it's such a silent and lonely place otherwise. Also going to places that you would have visited maybe when you were pregnant. I loved walking around Sheffield Park, and I loved walking around anywhere where there was water. Just the calming water, the waves, just in the dark. I used to love that, and every now and then, if I'm having a week where I'm feeling a little bit glum or sad, then I'll pop back there, and it just really calms me.
Oh, that's lovely. So do you have any recommendations on how parents can cope after having a baby loss?
One of the coping mechanisms, the best coping mechanism, is to just allow yourself to feel how you need to feel and be how you need to be, but do that in the most safest way possible. I find now that I cry if I'm driving home from work. I always cry. If I get in the shower and I'm feeling sad, I'll have a cry, but I cry in my safe places. I don't feel that I can't cry. If I need to cry, I'll cry.
I think it's very important that 2 weeks or 2.5 years later, you are still crying. You're never going to get over something like this. I think that's really important for people to know. Like some people, like you said, say stuff like, "Oh, are you not over it yet?" How can you ever be over losing a child? It's like saying to me, how would I be without one of my child? The same thing. I wouldn't be able to cope.
No.
Why should you be able to?
There are lots of treatments and therapies and counselling and cognitive behavioural therapy that you can have, which will help you with your day-to-day coping. And I think what happens is you learn to deal with what's happened. You learn to understand the experience rather than get over it.
Yeah.
You learn that this is the new you. This is the new life you have.
It shapes you, doesn't it?
It does, totally.
Everything we go through shapes us, and
Totally.
this will shape any parent.
Yes, it will. And for a period of time, it may feel like it's the absolute end of the earth. It is the worst thing that can ever happen to anyone. But there are days when it's okay to look up at the sun and smile. It's okay to stop and enjoy the flowers, and actually be grateful that there is an opportunity for healing eventually. If someone had told me in the early days, you will smile again, I was hurt, because I thought, how can you even say that to me? My son's just died. How can you even suggest that I might smile? But 2.5 years on, looking back, I do smile now. I am grateful for my friends and my family, and I'm grateful for how he's shaped me, how Oscar's brought the charity to where it is now, how he's shaped me as a person. Doesn't take for 1 second, any of that pain away, but I've learnt to deal with it, and I've learnt that this is how it is now.
So for friends and family that want to support a parent that's going through this sort of like loss in their lives, what could they do to help support them?
Really, really good question, and that's something that I get asked probably 2 or 3 times a week. I honestly think that that is down to the individual. I personally needed to hear and know that Oscar was being acknowledged, that I hadn't been through this horrific experience and that I'd woken up and it was a nightmare. I had to be allowed to talk about him, so my family acknowledging that, my family using his name, my family remembering important milestones like birthdays, like a year on from when we had his funeral and he was buried. All of those things are really, really key. So I think it is down to the individual family, because we've had many families that one or both of the couple have struggled to, over a period of time, come to any form of terms about what had happened, would rather it wasn't acknowledged, and would rather that the experience they've been through in the baby wasn't. It's not that the baby isn't acknowledged, but they find talking about it hard. One of the things that we found really helpful in acknowledging the little one or the little ones was through a teddy bear.
Yes.
Now, this is my Oscar bear, and Oscar was...
Hey, Oscar.
He's very well loved, as you can see. He's a bit grubby, even though he's been in the washing machine quite a few times. Oscar was sent to me, and ironically, as soon as I cuddled it, it reminded me of holding Oscar. It was a similar length, felt like a similar weight to him, and all of a sudden my arms weren't empty. I had something to hold. I had something in my arms that meant although my heart ached, my arms weren't empty. And he has become the charity mascot, and actually is the start of our Love a Bear programme. So the Love a Bear programme is where families, friends can gift a teddy bear to either the children of the family, to the family themselves, and often they choose to name the bear after the baby or babies, which is a really lovely way, because whenever my nieces and nephews come round for the day, they always fight over Oscar Bear, and to them he might just be a teddy, but to me he's a memory.
Yes.
He's involved, and just to hear someone say his name. So the Love a Bear programme is a really great way of gifting something precious to a family that will mean so much more than you can ever imagine. It's a great way for me to keep his memory alive.
Yeah.
Another key way of acknowledging the baby or babies is, of course, getting the permission from the parents. And I was very vocal about wanting Oscar's name included in everything. So, for example, Christmas was quite soon after I lost him, and I felt such a comfort to see "To Gemma and Oscar" written in the Christmas card. And again, that's very individual, and you can very gently ask, you know, how would you like us? We want to support you in the best way we can. How would you like us to acknowledge? Is that okay for us to write your child's name? And do ask permission. And it is always a difficult question to ask, but my heart sang every time.
All the time we say Oscar and you smile.
Yeah.
It's so nice for us to say it, and
any parent does.
Yeah,
when I say your children's name, it's an acknowledgement, but it's also that he is part of me, and he is who shaped me now. So for that to be suppressed and for that to be ignored would be like ignoring me, because actually, if anything, ignoring the experience you've been through can come across as being hurtful. But I understand that some families would like that. So the whole point of Oscar's Wish is to reach out to families that don't know where to look, they don't know where to go.
For the people that are watching and want to support a parent that have just lost their baby, what should they avoid saying?
Good question. Wow, where do I start? There are so many that I experienced, and they cut deep, and things like, well, at least you knew you could get pregnant. Well, I'm sure you can have another one. It was God's way. It wasn't meant to be. Or there must have been something wrong with him. They're just a few of the hurtful comments which would have meant in jest, would have been something that maybe the person saying it needed to say something but they didn't know what to say, and they are the words that came out. And we're all guilty of going, oh gosh, I shouldn't have said that, or oh, why did I say that like that? And you can see on their faces afterwards, as the tears roll down your face, that they didn't mean it. Often there are no words. Just being there with someone has so much more power than any words that can often be said. But I think it all depends on the person, and it all depends on the situation they've been through as to what would be uncomfortable to hear. And we do have an information leaflet for friends and family.
Awesome.
That goes out in our bereavement support bags, and we can send out to families with ways to initiate conversation, which is a really key leaflet for families to have access to. How to listen without judgment, because I think in our heads we automatically as human beings have that judgmental, whether it's meant in a positive light or a negative light, that judgmental trigger. And I think it's whether we say it or not, whether we then follow that thought through with.
So what advice would you give to families where there are children who have understood that there's been a loss in the family?
Okay, this is really tailored to the age of the children and their level of understanding. So we have projects that we run regularly throughout the year, whereby we send resources to family to help aid this project. So for example, the older children, kind of 6 upwards, we sent out these beautiful butterfly kits which the family all together can take part, which is lovely. They watch the whole process, the whole life cycle, until the butterfly becomes a beautiful butterfly, and then they release them. And it's a lovely way, that whole release is a lovely way of releasing any pent up emotions or any feelings around the loss of a baby. We also have other projects that we get our families involved, especially when they've got younger children. So obviously Love a Bear is great for all of the ages, all of the age ranges. And then much younger children, we send out items that they can do, activities that will help them remember their baby. So we had some beautiful heart craft kits that were sent out to families where they could make these items and then either hang them on a memory tree, put them in a forever garden. We also have a brilliant resource from The Adventures of Brian, which is a beautiful book called Brian and the Shiny Star, which explains to children in a really gentle way, using stars and feathers, about the loss. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. There is no right or wrong way to survive this journey, and that's how it can often feel. That it is a survive. It's fight or flight. You know, there are plenty of resources out there, and hopefully through Oscar's Wish we can also provide that support that a family may need at a really, really devastating time.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me and talk about this, because I know it's difficult. I hope this video helps parents and families on how to deal with the devastating loss of a baby. If you want to contact Gemma and her team, I'll include the link to her Facebook page below and they'll reply accordingly. If you want to follow Gemma's journey, she's got a YouTube channel as well, I'll include that below. And also, if you want to see other vloggers, mums that have had baby loss, then do check out the link on Channel Mum that I will include also below. And I really hope you can take something away from this video. If there's anyone you know that would find this beneficial, please do share this video with them, and please do give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.